There are four big mountains of issues affecting us. These are unique to Africans. These are unique to us Africans, us Kenyans, us East Africans. And it's dumbfounding that at this point, in this stage, in this life, in this era, the writings are on the wall, but for some reason, we don't read it. We are completely missing it. We're missing this. See now, a while back, when we were, some of those young days when as young men, right when we came out of our teenage days, we were feeling lightning and thunder. I mean, we could shake the earth. And I remember one of the first girlfriend I heard who kind of walked away from me. When she did that, I was, of course, devastated. That first girlfriend is that first kill, And I was devastated. And I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine who also had just also left in the wind. And so we were both in that wild wind, that emotional moment, that devastated moment. And when we talked about our painful losses, his talk, my talk, touched our souls, like we could feel it. And to date, I remain friends with that man. I remain friends with that friend. And little did I know that the reason me and him connected that way is because at that moment we were exposed. At that moment we were at that low level, low down. Our emotions were really bad. And it's this brother who came for my comfort. And it's that brother who remains as a comfort to me. I trust him and he trusts me. Because at that moment when we were down and under, we both came into each other. This is what the preacher does to you. This is what the politician does to you. The preacher comes to you when you just had a loss. Maybe your loved one just died. Maybe you just had a breakup in your relationship. Maybe you just had a divorce. Maybe you just had a job loss. You just got fired. Maybe you just lost your money. And the preacher comes right at that point. He comes to you in your mind. Those neurons in your mind, that's what is called predictive. The neurons in our minds do predictions. So the mind looks at situation that you are in right now, and then tomorrow it predicts, say, yesterday this is what happened. Remember, our minds are in a black box. It's like inside our head. There's no eyes. This is like a black box. He does not see anything. All the messages go through the sensory system. And it goes into that cortex in our mind. And that mind, the neurons, fires and it does what is called prediction. And it predicts and it says, okay, what happened yesterday or the previous day? We received this kind of information. So what do we predict? If it's because you had a loss, the mind says, oh, when I was down and under, this person came and helped. So therefore, let's depend on this same person. That's that preacher. So the preacher prays on you, waits on you. See, if you're drinking, he waits on you until you're down and under. The drinking has overwhelmed you. Here he comes. He comes at that moment when you are down and under. That is when he comes to you and rips off from you. Here comes a man who's never been to heaven. And because you are going through some turmoil, some struggle, some situation that you really are susceptible to issues, he comes to you and gives you a promise. And your mind from that point depends on that promise. So when you go through troubles, when you go through hardship that is normal in this earth, your mind goes back to that prediction, to that previous experience, and it predicts, oh, you gotta go to that preacher. So the preacher, in the meantime, prepares you every day, every Sunday, to depend on him. So he gives you this motivational, satisfactory kind of speech that makes you willing and wishing to go back to him, because you're a social species. Since you're a social species, you were going back to him because you want to socialize. You know, some of these people who were single mothers, single parents, some of these people who are married inside a church, some of these people who have seen their loved ones for the last time in church, that was a place of consolation. And the preacher, just like I pray, just like that lion sitting out in the open, waiting for the deer to just show up, is sitting there waiting to spoon feed you and give you this hallucination. And you go back to him because he gives you that which your body, your mind is predicting that is what will comfort you. And he becomes your slave master. Because now you do not want to think outside of this. You're going to go back to this person and depend on him to give you guidance, to give you instructions, to give you a promise of an eternal life, that which is never seen. He goes back to the same scripture, ancient book that you and I know cannot help you today. That's the preacher. Second troublemaker, second person who is bringing down Africa is a politician. And the politician plays by the same script the preacher plays with. The preacher knows, the politician knows that if I sell you a promise and you willingly or blindly believe in that which he is promising you, then he becomes just like the preacher. Because the preacher, you can never hold him accountable for the lies that he's selling to you. And the politician does the same thing. He comes to you, makes promises to you. A promise does not have to be fulfilled. It's not a guarantee. It's a promise. God damn it, it's a promise. So he sells you the promise and you make two errors. You're not realizing that this is a promise. So he doesn't have to satisfy you to give you that which you ask or he promised. Second, believing is lack of knowledge. You believing in things that you did not ask for evidence is your own downfall. So you make two mistakes. The person made a promise to you, he or she does not have to fulfill his promise. Second, you believe without asking for evidence. Both are on you, the voter. Both of those things are what happens when you go to the preacher. And so these two men or women, one is ripping you off economically, the politician. The preacher is ripping you off not only spiritually, but he's also ripping you off financially. Because here you are now, this hypocrite you, who want to run and accuse a government official of misplacing or misusing government funds. But you don't have a problem with this preacher. These funds that you raise, millions of money that you raise every Sunday, building churches that you don't even use. You only go there for 1 hour every Sunday. Buying chairs instead of buying chairs for the kids. Buying Bibles instead of buying science and historical books. Every Sunday, you don't hold this guy accountable. This guy or this woman or this lady, you don't hold them accountable. You have no problem raising millions rather than going to that hospital and feed that one who's sick. Give help, give some change that one walking on the street naked. These chokoras. You don't want to do that. You go give this money to this person who you know nothing about. You only see him on Sunday. A man you cannot even trust with your wife or your daughter. You give that money, no problem. But then you have a problem with a government official who might have missed some funds. Why are you becoming a double snake? On one hand, you're accusing others. On the other hand, you look the other way. Again, belief. You look the other way when you should be looking straight at a problem that is in front of you. And now, number 3 is tribalism. See, now, I've lived in so many countries. At some point, I lived in South Korea. I've lived in the United States. I've lived in Africa. So therefore, I've seen what it means to speak one language. You refuse to speak one language. Oh no, you have this national language. Oh no, you have 1 or 2 national languages, but the whole country speaks some different tribal languages, and you think you can come together. You think or you hope that someday you can come together. What we don't get, what I don't understand is the writing out on the wall. Let's take an example. England, they speak one language. A small little country in the middle of a damn ocean, scattered around, came down and ruled you in Africa, came down and ruled the West because of just unity. And one thing we know that is constant with the English people is they speak one language. Even Europe, each country speaks one language. That's what's constant with these people. And they came and colonized you, conquered you. They've done what they're willing. They want to, whatever they choose to do, they can do to you. And you don't even understand that. Right now you're holding on tribal languages, tribal lines. You're falling under the tribal lines. You are aligning yourself with one tribal leader. Which goes back to what I said about the politician who makes promises to you and you don't even realize the reason you're voting for that person is because he is what? Of your tribe. See, we ask again, what is wrong with us Africans? The preacher is completely raping you. The politician is raping you, robbing you. Tribalism is destroying you because it transitions from you making sure you look out and after your tribal men which builds into corruption. Because when you become the head of that agency, the head of that government, you're going to look after your own brothers and sisters. You're going to look after that person who speaks the same language with you, that tribal, that village thinking crook. And then on top of that, you will most likely align with that preacher who speaks the same language as you. Again, my people, what more do we need to show each other to understand this is the baseline of our problems? All right? The last point I wanted to make here is education. See, now, to read books is not to be wise. Yes, it's necessary to go to school. But the wisdom that we don't have is we have refused to look into our history. We have refused to talk to those gray-haired old men and women. These grandfathers who are still alive. They have history to teach us. So here's why we have people who we should have been. These people who should have been the educated ones, the enlightened ones in our societies. These same people who is supposed to know better. These people who, when they get sick, they go see a doctor and they ask a doctor, what is wrong with me? And the doctor says, this is your problem. Your knee has a problem. And we're going to scan it. And when we did the scanning, we found this and that. And therefore, we're going to prescribe you this medicine, or you're going to have to go through this kind of rehabilitation. And that person makes a decision based on that. But when it comes to, for instance, politics, the enlightened one, the civilized one, apparently we're not civilized. We refuse to help our people to ask and scrutinize these politicians, ask them, how come you want to take this direction? When you say you will do this and that, how are you going to do it? We don't use the same evidential requirement of how we live our lives. There's some things we completely look the other way, which is why I said education. We got a people who have come out of the village, but they're thinking in that village with that village mindset. We cannot even help our own people by educating them where religion came from. Because if we had looked into where this religion came from, we would know where we are, where we're going. We would know that that preacher is lying to you. You wouldn't go and fundraise for that preacher or for that church if you knew that the Bible was printed yesterday, 1550, about 700 years ago. You wouldn't sit and argue and fight with your brothers and sisters who are Muslims or who are Hindus, who are Buddhists. You would understand, apparently, your God is not the only God there is. Because there's a Yahweh over there. There's a Muhammad over there. There's a Buddha over there. And a logical person would look into this and make conclusion that perhaps I need better evidence in this world, in this life. So education is what we're missing. Education is what we're lacking. So I wanted to mention these three issues here. A preacher who is pimping our people. A preacher who today you could read news is asking women to come to church with no panties. Tomorrow, the next one was saying, or yesterday, the next one was saying he could raise one from the dead. A complete act. Should have been a Hollywood movie for bamboozling thousands of people. And yet, again, what? Guess what? Tomorrow one will be found to have robbed or raped or molested a kid. And you see this as a person, a learned person, who goes around as a politician or as a regular civilian, who tells others, you cannot keep doing the same thing over and over again and again and expect different results. You completely look the other way with us. After so many incidences, you should ask your doctor. That I came here last time, you told me we need to do x-ray and this is the rehabilitation I'm supposed to take. I took that. I came here again, you told me do this. I came here again and you told me do this. How many times are you going to get it wrong? Is this enough? That's what you should have been telling this preacher or that doctor. So when we talk about issues that we have, the reason we in Africa are on a downward trajectory is because when we look at the deviation from the standard is that we know based on history how other societies have succeeded. And that standard shows that at minimum there was a constant, which was one language. There was a constant which was patriotism. There was a constant which was nationalism. All those constants are what has made other nations to go above and beyond. There was also a constant where people build their own businesses. Those are the constants, the standard. And when we see the deviation of those standards, we notice that every time an African says, I have my own tribal language, I speak a different language. Every time we tell an African, here's what you need to do. Let's come together. Let's unify. Let's be national. Let's have this nationalism kind of thinking. Every time we tell them, let's stay on this level right here because this is the standard, they don't get it. And we notice the deviation of all these are changing and shifting. And and that's why we are where we are. We're stuck where we are. That's why we're where we are. The preacher is fooling you on Sunday and has actually captured your mind. The preacher comes in, makes promises of you, gets in there, you electing even young kids now, gets in there and their sole benefit is what is called personal benefit. If it's not personal, it's going to be family benefit. If it's not family benefit, it's going to be they're trying to benefit their person of the same tribe. Then we go on this other side, tribalism. You're thinking under those tribal lenses, tribal lines, tribal alignments. And then when we talk about look at your history so you can predict a future, you don't want to look at your history. Every Sunday you're singing this song of thou shalt respect your parents. But you have zero respect. You have zero respect of the great-great-grandparents who were abused and molested and raped, who were colonized, who was pushed out of their fertile lands. You have zero respect to those Mau people, the fighters, your saviors. You have zero respect on them. And yet you want to go take an oath every Sunday talking about respect your parents and your elders. And you have zero respect on these people, because if these people were to come back alive today, They will not believe you're worshiping under the ideology given to you by the same person who abused and molested them. What do you want, people? You rather go as an educated person. You rather go and give thanks and praises to an ancient Yeshua who you never met. But you cannot be thankful to this person, this Mau Mau guy who fought and died for you. What is wrong with our double snake kind of life we live? This hypocritical life we live. And then finally, we have the master now, a politician who is also a preacher. And virtually almost all of our politicians are believers. So these people have found ways to bamboozle you through their promises. And notice what they do. If things don't go their way, they say we leave it unto what? To God. They leave it unto God. Anything that it doesn't go their way, they leave it unto God. And you remain there. The same bamboozled person. You remain there still doing the same thing. And you let these people fool you. A man who today, if things go his way, he's so proud of himself. If things don't go his way politically, he says we leave it unto God. So I got to come back, my people, and we have to ask ourselves these things. What is happening? Sincerely speaking, what are we going to do? We have politicians who have decided or figured out a way to use the politician tactics and also the preaching tactics. So while you are rejecting this preacher today because he is this, he is that, you run from a preacher who is lying to a politician who is really screwing you up. Or you run from the politician to the preacher under the same tribal lenses. Miseducated. You think you are educated, but you're following ideologies given to you by others. The naivety we have as Africans. So I call on you to please, let's look into this and let's make a change. Do not let others fool you. Do not go the ways of the blind, the deaf, and the dead. This is a world of new information. It's a world that we all have to think wisely, plan things, look the other way. I mean, not look the other way, but look in a different way. Use different eyes. This is a world that we have to understand where we've been, where we're supposed to go, and how much we have to go. Other nations are so far ahead of us. What do we need to do? Can we continue doing the same things? How are you, this responsible person? You call yourself responsible. This person you want to be accounted for. How can we sit here and expect that we can go forward, but we're still doing the same things? So I call upon you to look and ask that preacher. Every time he tells you there is an heaven, he has to tell you how he knows that. Every time he tells you there was a risen man or there's a miracle, he has to show you what is that miracle. He has to prove. Same way with a politician. He cannot come to you, make promises to you. Ask for evidence, ask for proof. He doesn't have the wallet of the government. He doesn't have it. So how is he going to make promises when they go into Congress or Parliament, they have to negotiate like everybody else? How is he going to give you anything that will change you? You got to let go this tribalistic thinking. Start speaking in English or Swahili. Completely. Change your life. I changed mine. And then, of course, get educated. Not the formal education. Not this other education we all went through school. That didn't help. We have to be informed people. People who are intelligent, people who can access information, people who double check everything. That's education I'm talking about. People who know their history, who know today, and to go forward for tomorrow, they know what to do, how to go about. That's what I'm asking.